Hello. It is Wednesday morning here in the central United States. So that means it is time for a creative session, and you're stuck with me today. Exciting, right? So let me just double check and make sure we are actually live here. Give me a second. We're live. Okay, perfect. So, one thing I want to mention before I get started is that we're doing another live stream right now with Laura and JC and Pedro, and they're actually doing what we normally do on Tuesday in English. They're doing in Spanish. So, if you're interested, I'm going to go ahead and drop the link to that in our chat here so you can jump over there if you'd rather hang out with them. Um, yeah, I'm sure they're having a good time, and I think they'll be covering a lot of the stuff we covered yesterday and probably some new stuff. But yeah, go check that out if you get bored here or if that's more your speed this morning. So anyway, today I thought we'd get started with messing around and talking about blend states, which we just released a use case on our website, which I'll link to that as well here, in which we created a pull to refresh animation or pull to refresh interaction, which included some custom animation. So that used blend states for the actual pull sequence for that. So I'm going to drop the link here and you can look at the use case, and there's a lot of resources um, on this page to get an idea of how you could use blend states for something like that. But we're going to keep things fairly basic today, and we're probably going to jump around. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do. I was thinking of building some furniture today. We'll see. Maybe we'll move on to a character if we get through it quick enough. But I just wanted to keep things pretty simple to start with. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to remove myself. Well, that's because sorry, I removed myself from the stream. I didn't just hide my video. Sorry about that. Okay, Steven asks, I want to use pull to refresh as well, but want to make it responsive and also use the colors from my Flutter theme. So in terms of responsiveness, interestingly enough, we're publishing another use case that kind of covers responsive Rive animations. So that would be a good place to start. Blend states will actually kind of hit on the responsive piece as well. In terms of using colors, that would be like probably a Gordon or Zach question. If you wanted to pull them from your Flutter theme, I'd imagine you could. I just don't know that it would be as straightforward as a lot of us would like at this point. But I believe there's a way to expose and access colors. It's just a bit of it takes some, I think, some low level coding to get that done. But again, that would be a question for Zach or Gordon, and you can drop that on Discord as well. But anyway, let me remove this. Is the audio back? It should be. I just made a faux pas when I changed this. So let me jump to this view. So you should be able to still hear me and see the Rive editor here. So to get started, we're going to just start building a really basic chair. So like I said, this is going to be, delete this. This is going to be if you're into furniture, it'll be exciting. If you love IKEA like I do, might be kind of fun. But basically, we're going to build a chair that we can kind of use blend states and number inputs to change the height, the width, and a few other attributes we can identify here that we want to mess with. So cool. Audio's back. Perfect. So yeah, let me just, this design should go pretty quick. I normally like to design live just because I love playing around in the editor. And this is a good way to get some practice in. So we're just going to make, it's not going to be the greatest thing you've ever seen, but it should do the trick. And if there's anything I'm doing like that you'd like to know how I'm doing, go ahead and ask. So this is like our seat cushion, our armrests. We'll duplicate one of these for the back here. Oops, the height. And one thing to note is I'm adjusting all of these shapes with the, I'm using the width and height. I'm not doing any scaling right now. So this is something to kind of keep in mind when we go to make the blend states, the different animations for our blends, is that we want to be kind of, I guess, very specific with what we want to key, what properties we want to key, because that's how these blend states work, which we'll get to once we get rolling here. So let me drop in some legs, and we're pretty close. Again, nothing to write home about here, but gives us something to work with. Anybody do anything exciting? I know we're already at Wednesday. Anybody see the new Spider-Man movie? We had a chat about that a while ago, and it's awesome. I highly recommend checking it out. Super fun movie. Visuals are crazy and just like really inspiring. So if you're into that kind of thing, definitely go check it out. I'm looking forward to going a second time. Yeah, I definitely recommend it if you can get out to the theater, or I'm guessing it'll be out for streaming. We'll see how long they ride the theater money, but I'm guessing it'll be out for streaming within the next month. This might be one that I buy like the actual DVD though. Okay, so let's go ahead and group all this, and I'll just name this. I'll name this root, and I'm actually gonna, just so we have some groups to play with, name this chair. It's already more like a couch though. Actually, let's solve that. Let's make it more chair-like. So we're going to bring all these in, because the idea is we're actually going to use a blend state to adjust it to more of a couch or love seat type thing. And so bring our legs in. I'm going to lighten these up, something like that. And you know what? Let's add a shadow. And for that, for that, we're just going to create a path here, remove our fill, and add a stroke, and do something like this. And we'll put this behind everything. So it gives us a little shadow here, which we can adjust as well. So that's kind of a pretty basic looking chair. We'll add a little depth there. I don't know if these are a little goofy. Let's shrink these down and move them down here. I'd sit in it. It looks comfy. Yeah. The movie will give you a lot of new ideas for animations. And the coolest thing I think about the way that they're doing these like the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies, looks like they're using a lot of these techniques, and the uh, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish did the same thing. Is that they're really utilizing like um, holding frames and using them more in like the frame rate a bit more intentionally, and kind of using them for impact and things like that, which is really nice to see. Kind of some more traditional 2D animation techniques being brought into 3D, and just the texturing and the way that they're doing things. It's just not what you're used to seeing with 3D movies. So it's really nice to see it kind of refreshed. And I think like thinking back, the what was the League of Legends? Um, I can't think of the name of that or the show on Netflix, but I think they started doing a lot of that. Kind of started touching on some of those techniques in that show. Arcane, that's what it is. Yeah. Um, anyway, let's get moving on our couch here. And so, okay, so we're gonna say this is like our um, default couch. Let's give ourselves a little more width to play with here. Move all this. And this is why it's nice to have a root group, is I can adjust and move everything. We can actually use our align tools. So over here, we're gonna look at our timelines, and we're gonna name this like our min width for our couch. And we're gonna duplicate this, and we'll call this one. Actually, let's not duplicate it yet. Let's do our work here. So here, what we want to do is start to key our properties that we want to adjust or blend. When we create this blend state, we want two different states that we can essentially scrub through a number input, and it'll start adjusting these properties, blending between the two sets of keys. So it might be easier to just get to show this visually. So I'm going to start with this the back of this chair, and we're going to key the width here, and this is going to be so the width when it's at its the smallest that this can go. And then we're going to do the same for the cushion, and the same for the underside or base of the seat. And then for these, we're just going to move, we're going to move the position. So as this chair turns into a couch, we want to move these items. So we can key the X position for those. So this is our kind of our min width of this. Oh, and we actually want to do it here as well. And for this, we could do a trim path, but one thing we can do is we can actually key the X position of our vertices too, which is something you can do if you want to modify the shapes a bit more as you're building these timelines for your blend states. So we've got our min width, and then we're going to duplicate this, and we'll call this max width. And so here we want to think about what would this look like as a couch. So we can start adjusting things. Let's stop editing that path. So we can go over here, and I would recommend using these inputs, these text fields, and just dragging and scrubbing, scrubbing up or down. So let's say this is our couch width at the max width. And then we can start to reposition these items. So again, I'm just adjusting the X position. We can adjust the width of these. And here you can see I can just select a couple things and adjust the width. And then these, we want to adjust the X position, and maybe it'll come in a little bit. Same here. And so just to keep in mind, you only want to key the properties that you need to for each of these animations. Because if we wanted to do like a height one, we'd want to control the Y position and height and things like that. So here we're just concerned with X. So let's go ahead and do this, and we'll adjust our X position for this one and our X position for this one. So now we've got a fairly nice looking couch, although that cushion would probably be a pain in the butt to deal with. Um, anyway, so we've got our min width and our max width. Okay. Um, so from here, we can start kind of looking at how we would set up a blend state for this. And I'm gonna, I kind of debated on how I wanted to do this, but I think do, um, I'm gonna use so our blend, our additive blend, not our 1D. And what the blend additive is going to let me do is add a bunch of attributes. So I can essentially derive a bunch of different properties um, by mixing stuff together. So let's do this, and then it's hard. It's easier to just show you. So here I'm going to use mix by value, and I'm going to set our min width to this value of 100, and basically that means we're going to mix like it's fully 100. It's fully mixed to the min width, so we're going to default to that, and then we're going to add another, and we're going to actually mix by input, and we're going to select our max width. And then here we want to use our width input that we created here. Let's go ahead and connect our entry. And you can see when I start to scrub this, we can basically like adjust the width to whatever we want. So we can do something in the middle. We can do this is our, if we set it to 0, this is our smallest chair. And if we set it to 100, it's our couch. So yeah, that's, kind of the basics of how you work with these blend states. And it just gives you a nice way. Like if I give this input to the dev, they can access it and we can set it to whatever we want. And we can also, we can do things like build a couple buttons here. So these aren't going to be anything fancy. I'm doing not fancy stuff today. So we can make buttons here that will adjust this width input. And we can predefine some sizes here. So let's take a look at how we would do that. And again, if anything doesn't make sense, let me know and I'll try and answer your questions. Like I said, I wanted to try and keep things a little bit more simple today. Just because blend states can get kind of confusing if you haven't messed with them. They still confuse me on occasion, but I'm getting more adept with them. So let's take a look at how we might set up some buttons to adjust the width of this. So let's make a new layer and let's call this sizes. And here we can basically just set up listeners. Actually, we can just set up listeners for this. So if we click this, let's call this small, medium, large. So here, if we make a listener on pointer down, we can set our width to a certain value. So let's say on pointer down, we set it to 0. And then for this one, we can add another listener. And on pointer down, we're going to set our width to 50. And for our large, we don't need this one. Delete this one. And on large, on pointer down, we can set our width to 100. So go ahead and play this. So you can see I can basically adjust the width of this with some predefined buttons. So yeah, as I click through these, you're getting your small, large, and medium. So again, this would be a way if you didn't want to rely on a developer to set these values, you could make it interactive and create some buttons to change the width. of your couch. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's see what else we can do with this. So here we've got, okay, so we've gone over making the width, adjusting the width. What if we wanted to adjust the height of this? So now we can start to play with the Y values. So let's create a new timeline, and we're going to call this min height. And let's see, should we, let's maybe, we'll just move things down. So we're going to select all these shapes, and we're just going to key the Y value. So make it real squatty here. And we'll maybe even adjust the height here. Like this. And I think for this, we're going to have to adjust the Y position a little bit because that's a fun chair. Okay, so this is our min height, and then we'll duplicate this. I'll make this max height. And we actually might want to think about changing the way we set this up. So I think what we can do is we can make a base. We can make a base animation. We'll just keep going with this. I think this will work though. All right, let's see, min height, max height. So here we're going to grab all of these and then move them up. Grab this and move it up. And we'll actually adjust the height of this as well. So we've got kind of a high back chair. So now we can see our min height and our max height. So if we go back into our state machine, let's create a new number input, and we'll call this one height. And go back into our blend. And I think if we add a new mix by value, and we go min height, and we want to set that one to 100 as well, and then we'll go mix by input, max height, and we'll select our height. So let's play this. Let's see. So you can see we can adjust the height, and we should be able to do the width as well. So we can play with all of these values, adjust all of these, and make something in between. So that's the coolest part of this, is that you get like a bunch of stuff for free. Like I can make this kind of mid-size couch, love seat thing, and I can make it real short, real tall. And then I can adjust the width as I need to. So yeah, that's how you can start to blend different properties together as well using these inputs. So that's that. Let me think of what are some other things we could adjust with a number input. So we could start to play with color. So we could set, we create a new timeline, and we could call this, let's say our, we'll just say color 1. And we'll go ahead and key all of these shapes here. So we've got our selection colors. I think we can just key them here. So all those are set, and then we can, let's set them here though. Okay, so we'll set this, let's start with like a blue. Nice blue. We'll set the stroke here to something like this. Then we'll key this back here to maybe this. And the stroke here. something like that. There we go. Okay, so we've set our color. You'll notice it's still not isn't updating yet because we haven't added it to our additive blend state here. So we'll get to that after we set our second color. So we'll duplicate this. This will be color 2. And then we'll go ahead and start to change these. So maybe we want to go from blue to, let's just go here to this nice red, pink. We'll do red. I'll adjust our strokes. Something like this. And adjust the back here as well. So move towards red. Just a darker hue there. And same with the stroke for that one. So now we've got a couple different colors. So we've got blue and red. And again, the cool thing is we're going to actually be able to mix between these. So let me go ahead and get this set up over in our state machine. We'll create a new input, new number input. We'll call this one color. And over in our blend, we're going to add those new timelines. So we'll mix by value, and that's going to be our color 1. And then we'll mix by input, and that'll be our color 2, and we'll use the color input. So we go ahead and play this. You can see we start with our blue couch, or a blue chair, and then we can scrub through and adjust the color of this thing. So we can make a red couch that's tall here. We can then make it blue, make it squattier, and adjust this. And one thing it looks like I need to do is our legs here need to go behind here. So that should fix some more issues. But yeah, so we can adjust, like I said, basically any property that you can key, you can blend between. Just the trick is to separate them into the different timelines that you want to affect. So like we did with our min width, we want to only key the X position and the width. And for our height, we only want to key the Y position and the height of objects. And for color, we only want to key the color, the hex value here. So yeah, that's again, like I said, this is going to be pretty basic, but pretty powerful. Once you start to learn how these things work, you can think of ways to utilize them. So, you could have some sliders that are drawn on screen that let you customize your couch. We could add some things like, you're gonna have to bear with me here. So we could add, let's say we want a little pillow on here as well. See if I can get this to work. Oops. So we'll fill this. What color should we make it? Like a teal pillow. Round the corners, add a stroke. And select this and then darken it a bit. So here's like a little throw pillow, okay? And for our animation, we're going to have to position this thing in all of our, so in our min width, we're going to want our pillow keyed on the X here, and on max width, we're going to want to move it over here. And same for height. So we'll key the height here. And then for our max height, we want to move it here. So when we play our state machine, you can see our pillow is going to move wherever we keyed it. And because it's all linear, that's the other thing. There's no easing here. So it's all linear. So it's just interpolating between different positions. And so it's going to match up no matter where we go. So what we can do here is we can do a couple things. Is we're going to use solos to set how many pillows you have. So actually, you know what, we're gonna try something. When I said we're only gonna deal with our additive blend, let's see if we can get this to work with a 1D blend state. So we're going to create a new layer. We're going to create a new timeline, and we're going to set this scale to 0. Our pillow is hidden. So this is we'll call this no pillow. And let's go to our state machine. You have to bear, I think this is going to work. So we'll start with no pillow. And this is actually going to be here. We're going to go new number, call this pillow. And okay, so our first timeline, no pillow. So at 0, when that's set to 0, we have no pillow, right? Then we're going to duplicate this animation. We're going to call this 1 pillow. And here we're going to create a short little animation. So we're going to just pop this pillow on. This. Just do a quick animation here. So here what we're going to look for is we're going to say once we hit a certain number, and you know what, actually we want to tie this to, we want to tie it to the width, I think. So instead of using this pillow here, we're going to tie it to the width. And that way we can actually set, as we're adjusting our width, we can start to pop in pillows. So no pillow is at 0. And then we'll say 1 pillow is at 50. Let's just see how this works. Okay, so we got no pillow, right? So let's play with the height. Let's adjust our color, and then let's start to adjust our width. And what should happen is that when we hit this width hits a value of 50, we should play our 1 pillow animation. So let's see if that works. Okay, and it's not working because we need to not set it up this way. So we don't really want to blend. Ignore me doing this. What we want to do is states. And we can use, we want to use states. So this is where you could blend to adjust the pillow size, but we don't want to do that. So ignore me doing that. What we want to do is we want to trigger based on this value is what we want to do. We want to trigger an animation when this input reaches a certain value. So let's try this. Let's say when the width equals is greater than or equal to 50. Let's try this. Now we adjust our color, make a nice bright red, adjust our height. And then when we adjust our width, now when we hit 50, we should see that pillow pop on. Okay. And then we can do something, we can go back. So we can go back this way and we can say condition when width is less than or equal to, we'll do 49. And we'll just do a quick, we're not going to actually do an animation here, but now we should be able to pop the pillow on and then remove it, pop it on and remove it. So now we can do another one where we add another pillow to the left side when we hit 100. Oh, yes. Can you use blends to make a fake 3D effect? Absolutely. And we can, let's see, do we have time? We can try and do that here. Um, I can think of a use case for coffee size selector. Yeah. All right. Let's do that 3D real quick. So the cool thing is we've got our chair. Let's think about how we would do this. So basically we want it. So let's just go through. Let's go through this linearly. So we want to input with a number, and let's say this is rotation, like a 3D rotation. Okay. So what we can do is we want to duplicate. I got to think about this because we'll want to show the sides of this. So if we duplicate our chair, this could get tricky with the color part of it. But what I'm thinking is let's keep it real simple. So we'll duplicate our chair and we'll say this is back, chair back. It's actually the chair side. Okay. Below our chair group, and we'll delete our, we don't need the shadow here. Oops, go back into design mode and do this. Delete our shadow. We should still have, okay. So I think we can delete this. Hide this. Okay. So let's go ahead and modify. We're just going to do like black for sake of ease here. That's a cool thing about selection colors is I can adjust all this really quick. All right, so if we show this, we've got our chair and then our chair back. And so what we want is we'll start doing this. Basically, we just want to move the group position, but then we're going to need to key all of these things as well. So let's just get started here. So let's start where the chair sides. Boy, this is going to be interesting. Gotta think about this. Yeah, you can only do, yeah, but you could adjust, you could mix between them too, though. So kind of like how the width and height you can adjust, you could adjust the horizontal and vertical rotation. All right, let's do this. So let's create a new timeline. We'll call this left, 3D left, I think. And we will move the chair sides. Oh, it's going to be, I think this is going to work. So again, it's not going to look the best. 3D right. So right now it just looks like a shadow. But we're going to have to, we'll go into our min width. We're going to have to key, are all these already keyed though? No. For our chair sides, we're going to have to key all these. So here we'll key our, oops. I might have gotten myself into something I shouldn't have gotten myself into, but we'll see if we can do this. We'll maybe just get it working on, yeah, we'll get it. We got 20 minutes. I think we can do it. All right, so we've got our legs keyed in min width. Then we need to key them in our max width. And again, remember, now I'm just keying these shapes. I'm not actually messing with the groups here. So let's see. We can just copy these keys. So we'll copy the position here, paste it here. And same with this. Copy the position here and paste it here. Okay. So the next one we want to do is our width for, and this is where I really should have named things a little bit better. But let's do the back here. We want our width and our max width. We're just going to copy these. And, oops, it's not going to let me do that. Do that. Okay. It's our rectangle. And we're just setting the path width, right? Yeah. Path width here. Should be able to do the same here. Path width. Yeah, got it. Okay. And then here we want to set our path width. Oops, I'm getting confused. There we go. Okay, I knew I could get it to work. All right, so max width, min width, and then we need the other stuff. So our position for these, we need our X position keyed here, and our positions here. Copy this, paste it here, and copy this one and paste it here. Okay, so we're getting close. And really, we don't need this thing, do we? Got to think. I don't think we need to deal with this shape in here. I think the last thing we need to do is this one. So we need our width here. Oops. Min width here, key it here, and then max width. We'll just drop a key in here, but we're going to override it with this one. Copy it and paste it here. Oops. Oh, come on. What are you doing? Did I not copy the right key? Yeah, we need our width key here. Sorry about this. And we just need to paste it here, right? Why are you not copying and pasting? We'll just copy the value. This is our value. I hope I didn't do this all. Oh, am I pasting into the wrong thing? Here, this one. There. All right. So it's not going to look right here, but if we go to our, oh, hold on. Hold on. Go back to our blend. Let's delete this layer. We don't need that. We're going to add our 3D mix by value, 3D left, and mix by input, 3D right, and 3D rotation. All right, so let's assume that we had all this correct. And it looks like we still need to adjust the legs. But what this should let us do is adjust that shape back there. So if we had things set up correctly, so the legs are kind of what's not working here. So that might have to be set up a little differently, because I'm trying to think of how it would work with our width. is that, oh, we just have to key it differently in our width. So this gets a little confusing. Might have to think of a different way to do the legs, but that's kind of the idea, is that you'd group everything. Yeah, renaming would have made it faster. Yep. So rename your stuff. Name your stuff initially. Or you'll end up like me and it'll take you forever. Now I'm confused too. Great. Perfect. That's what I was hoping you would say. So the issue is that I'm just keying the position of this group, of this chair sides group. But the legs are moving with it. So basically I would need to figure out a way to offset the leg position with that. And actually we'd want to move our shadow behind this as well. So 3D rotation is a little more involved, but definitely doable. That's the thing, is that you could definitely do it. Again, it would just be figuring out how do we adjust the leg position. And maybe it's on a different animation. Or maybe they just move. That's the ticket. So the trick is doing this here. I think what we can do is these would need to be in a different group. So we need like a leg group. And you'd group these and then move them in your 3D left and right. And then it should work that way. I don't know if I can do it now since I've already keyed positions. Might get a little goofy on me. We can try it. I think it's gonna break. But basically this is our leg group, is you would key this here, like that. And then 3D right, key this here. And what I think is gonna happen is it's gonna break. Maybe not. There. Okay, so that worked. There. Yeah, so now you can kind of see we do this, but I'm not thinking about this correctly, is that you'd actually, you know what? It was fine how it was. I'm getting confused too. I'm with Vicus. I'm confused. Also, if we had to ease, it's all right. Yeah, it's definitely doable. I think it was fine the way I had it, because you're seeing the back legs moved. Also, if we had to ease to the animations, do we have to keep the Bezier value same in order to make it blend better? If you had to ease the animations, you would want to do maybe some kind of a remap, a nested artboard remap. So you would basically create all of these, and then you'd be able to remap the animation. So you would do it a little bit differently than this. Like this isn't, you're not animating anything with this. If you wanted to animate it, it would be a little bit more difficult. There's a feature that's coming soonish that I think would help with that. which is interpolation on transitions. So basically, um, you could jump to different widths, and it would animate using this duration and this value. So setting these values, and you could actually animate it. Um, but in terms of what you're saying, easing using these inputs, no, like you would. This is simply like manually adjusting things. So you could not do that. Yeah. This is kind of like dynamically adjusting things. Plus, if you're on the fly adjusting these, you're not really thinking about animating them, right? Like I'm I'm how should I put this? I'm just adjusting the width and height of this, right? I'm not thinking about how this animation would work. Um, it's just you can't key these values. So you'd basically have to key like just this chair sides. Yeah. I don't know if that made sense. But no, you would do it different. I would do it differently. I would set up nested artboards for these things. Um, like we've shown this in other or you could use a joystick too. I shouldn't say that it's impossible. You could set this up using a joystick. I'll show you how that would work. So we could remove our 3D. We don't have to remove it, but we'll remove it from this. I'll delete these. And what you could do is we could set up a joystick. So we just have our 3D turn. We basically have these keys. We grab our keys from the right and paste those here. And so now we've got a linear animation, right? And then what we can do is we can delete this one. Sorry, I'm getting confused again, but we'll make it work. We can add a joystick here, and we can map our 3D turn to the X axis of our joystick. And if we go here to a test timeline, you can see we can now adjust that 3D however we want. So what we could do, watch this. I'll do like a long timeline where we're just adjusting the perspective of this. So we'll key this here, then go here, then go back here. This is going to look weird. Here and here. This is going to be a funky animation, but now I can interpolate all these. We're kind of adjusting the 3D perspective. And then what I can do is I can create a new layer, and we can just play that timeline. We actually want it to loop. So I'll loop it. And now that's going to run forever. So that joystick animation that's controlling our 3D view is going to run forever. And so when we play with the width, which is what we had hooked up, right? So that'll work that way. But yeah, you could map some of this to joysticks too, if you wanted to key, if you wanted to animate do some static animations. This is kind of more of a way to do things more dynamically. I believe there's a way that the devs can access the joystick position, although it's just not as straightforward as doing an input. So maybe that answers your question. Yeah, the, the coolest part of inputs is that for things like scrolling on a web page, you can actually link that input value. So you can link these inputs to like a scroll percentage on a web page, and we've done some demos on that. It's what how the pull to refresh is done. I think Gordon's taking and checking the offset position of where the user is dragging from and to, and calculating that and driving that input to increase or decrease depending on where the use that offset is. So it's cool as you can just like you can map these input values to different things. Like you can do breakpoints on a website. Um, so like for responsiveness, like you can have an animation trigger once this value once this value reaches a certain number, but you can also blend things as you're doing that. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. I've actually got an example that maybe I can find. It's an older one. Yeah, a line that filled when you scroll the page. Yep. Yeah, so you can. Yeah, there's lots of. I'm gonna bring up a couple examples. I might be able to just open them in the editor. That's probably my best bet. And I'm gonna have to jump off in a few minutes, but let me see if I can find this really quick. Ignore my messy. Let me stop this for a second so I can find it. I'm gonna open a few files to look at if I can find them. Let's see. We've got a few things. So I guess while I'm here, I hope that this was somewhat interesting, somewhat helpful. Let's see. Where's the old one? Let's see if that's in here. Let's see here. Got a lot of files since I started working at Rive. I've got a lot of experiments and stuff like that. That's one of my favorite things to do. Oh, we can try this one. So I'm just bringing up some scroll examples that use these number inputs. There was one that I wanted to show that kind of demoed how you could set it up for breakpoints. It was done a while ago though, so you might do things differently, but I'm not finding it here right away. House built-in framer, that would be a fun one to show. I know, you're just seeing my face. It's boring. But okay, I'm not finding that one, but I'll show these other examples here. I wish I could find that one. All right, I will stop looking for it because I don't want you to be bored. Looking. All right, one last. I don't see it. Okay, we're not going to look at that. We are going to look at, yeah, the lemonade. Yep, I got that one. Let's share. Window, Rive, share. Okay, so we can start with this one. Let's, if I can remember how these are set up. So this one's a blend. This is another blend state. So it's a 1D blend, and it's got two animations here. If we bring this up, we've got an start and an end, and to set to 100. And it's we're using this number 1 to drive the animations. And if we look at the start, so the start, we're keying the group position here. If I So this is like the teeth that are driving this, and then we've got this rotation keyed here, and there's actually a rotation constraint on this guy here. You can see it is constrained to this group. So when this rotates the opposite way. But what you can do with this is you could map this to scroll position on a website, so it looks like the gear, like the whole like mechanical system is driving your page scroll. So you can see when I scrub through this number, you're kind of getting this like imagine like all this text is moving over here. And I did kind of mock something like this up in Framer. But yeah, this is pretty easy. There's a code snippet that Zach came up with that you basically drop into Framer, and then you can you just kind of you go select your input name here, and it'll let you adjust a few numbers, and you can get this working in Framer. But anyway, that's one of them. Let me see. You can see this, right? What's this other one? Yeah, this is the Lemonade one that we did for a scroll demo. Let me make sure this works. So this one's pretty complex in that it's like firing a few different animations as you scroll through. But if we back up here and we start scrolling, see, oops, move this up. So you can see our lemonade, our cup comes on. There's an animation that happens when you hit this point, and then we start filling with water. We drop some lemon juice in, we stir it up, put a straw in. Okay. So yeah, this is an example of something you can set up. Just all you need is this input, because this is driving everything. You deal with all the logic in your layers. And then you can just map this to a scroll position or whatever you can think of to map that to. So this house build-in that I did this one on a live stream as well. And it's the same thing. It's a blend state. And it's pretty simple. It's just a nest. Oh, this one's a little different because I'm using a nested artboard. This is what I was saying. If you wanted to key some of this stuff, is that if we look at the animation here, we've got this build-in animation, right? So it's what a little over 1.5 seconds. And if we zoom in here, you can see just this house builds in. So we've got easing, like we've got a bunch of stuff going on here. But then when we come to our main artboard, we added this as a nested artboard. So we've got our build-in, our animate artboard, and then our build-in timeline. We're just bringing over the animation, and we're remapping this. So when you bring in an animation with a nested artboard, you can select some options here. So you build in simple or remap, and remap lets you remap the time. So I can basically say at 0%, we're at frame 0, and at 100%, we're at the final frame. So it just plays through that whole animation. So what I did here is I keyed, so in our 0 animation in our main timeline, so this is a new timeline I created, I keyed the remap to 0 here. And then in the 100, I keyed the remap to 100. So if we bounce between these, you're not going to see anything because of the way this doesn't preview. But if I play it, you can see where things end up. So we've got 0, time at 0, time at 100. Then we add that to a blend, 0, and I actually set this to 1000, which gives you a little bit longer time to scroll through this. So Again, one thing to note, this can be whatever you want it to be. Um, it'll still map to this and it'll drive it over the course of those values. But if let's play this here. So as I'm scrubbing, you can see it's basically just going to go through and play this whole animation over the course of 100 or 1000 units. And I can do it in reverse. So yeah, that's another way you can play with the blend states and mapping it to a scroll or whatever. So yeah, that's that. I hope that you learned something. Like I said, we got a little sidetracked with trying to figure out the 3D, and I actually think I don't this leg group I don't think is necessary. I think it was fine. Now that I think about it, you generally have 4 legs on a chair or a couch, so you could offset it a little bit, which maybe we'll do that. Let's revisit this. So do this here, and then here we'll adjust it a bit. So now it looks like it's moving a little better. And you can move this front group too. That might be a bit more convincing. Let's actually do that. And we'd want to play with the shadow on the ground, but I think we keyed. No, we didn't add any of that. Anyway, let's go ahead and play this quick. That's right, we're keying that. We can adjust the height to match it. So we need to go ahead and key the height, but there. It's kind of working. And if you spent some time and actually matched the colors for all this, it would look a bit more convincing. But that's the idea. I'm going to modify this file maybe a little bit more and get it to a point where I feel like it would be something that would benefit the community, and I'll post it there, and maybe update the YouTube video with the link to that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I think that's it for streaming. If the Spanish stream is still going, looks like it's done. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. If there's anything again that was confusing or you need me to explain, jump on Discord and I can answer questions there. There's tons of ways to use these blend states. There's just this example, you could have a base, an animation that's your base, right? So this is the height and width of this chair. You can key all that stuff. Then you can add these. So you might not even need a min height. I'd have to play with that. But the nice thing about this is you can drive everything individually. So yeah, I again hope that helped or was useful, or at least somewhat worth your hour and a couple minutes of your Wednesday morning. Tune in to our lineup next week. Will be the same. Tuesday English live stream, Wednesday morning Spanish live stream, and I don't know who's doing the creative session next week, but we'll share that on Tuesday. Yeah, have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you create something cool in Rive this week. Thanks a lot for hanging out.